On January 17, 1991, at exactly 2:38 a.m. Baghdad time, the world witnessed something no generation before had ever seen. War happening live on television. Parents shook their children awake. College students crowded around dorm TVs. Newsrooms fell silent, except for the distant rumble of explosions broadcast over a shaky satellite feed. CNN reporters Bernard Shaw, John Holloman, and Peter Arnett whispered into microphones as the windows of their Baghdad hotel rattled, their voices trembling while tracer fire streaked across the night sky.
Does it occur to you that it is not accidental that we are still reporting to the world?
We still have seen no signs of any airplanes coming in here.
We're in the direction of the airport and some military barracks, and the bombing has not come in this far yet.
The sky glowed green, not from fireworks, but from night vision cameras capturing U.S. missiles slicing through the darkness. For the first time in human history, the entire planet watched a war unfold in real time.
Eyes over Baghdad have been illuminated. We're seeing bright...
Rick Atkinson wrote in Crusade, it felt less like breaking news and more like witnessing the future arrive early. This wasn't just a new kind of war. This was a message broadcast to billions. The Cold War is over, the Soviet Union is gone, and there is now only one superpower on Earth. Desert Storm wasn't simply about Iraq or Kuwait. It was the unveiling of America's unchallenged military dominance, a high-tech war in the age of 24-hour news. A war that didn't just change geopolitics, but changed how humanity experienced war. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the world power map flipped almost overnight. No bipolar world, no superpower rivalry, no ideological tug-of-war, just one nation standing alone, economically, militarily, culturally, the United States. President George H.W. Bush called this moment a new world order, a world shaped and stabilized by American leadership.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea. A new world order where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
But history never waits to test new power, and the first test came from a man who believed the Arab world feared him, and the West would not dare challenge him: Saddam Hussein. To understand Saddam's decision, you must understand Iraq's position in 1988. The Iran-Iraq War had just ended after 8 brutal years. 1 million casualties, cities destroyed, economy shattered. Iraq was drowning in debt, particularly to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. Saddam believed Kuwait was stealing oil through slant drilling, was suppressing oil prices to hurt Iraq, was refusing to forgive wartime loans, had no respect for Iraq's sacrifices. Michael Gordon's The General's War notes that Saddam viewed Kuwait not as a neighbor, but as a rebellious province. So, on August 2, 1990, Iraqi tanks rolled into Kuwait at dawn. In just 12 hours, Kuwait City fell. The world was stunned, but Saddam wasn't worried. The Arab League was divided. Europe was distracted by German reunification. The US was still haunted by Vietnam. The Soviet Union was collapsing. Saddam believed, nobody will stop me. He didn't understand that this was a new world, and he had just challenged the only sheriff left. What happened next was unprecedented. President Bush assembled a coalition of 35 nations, the largest since World War II. The US, the UK, France, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria, Canada, Italy, Argentina, Senegal, Bangladesh, and many more. Even the Soviet Union, America's old rival, supported UN resolutions against Iraq. It was the rare moment when the world agreed, you cannot erase a country from the map. Operation Desert Shield began. Hundreds of thousands of troops deployed into Saudi Arabia. Families were evacuated. Roads filled with military convoys. Jets roared overhead day and night. A Saudi resident later remembered, it felt like the world had arrived in our streets. January 17, 1991, coalition forces launched one of the most precise air campaigns in military history. F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighters slipped through radar undetected. Tomahawk missiles flew hundreds of miles, turning mid-air with computer guidance. AWACS planes commanded the skies like floating command centers. Baghdad's skyline erupted in green fire through night vision broadcasts. For 43 days, coalition forces dismantled Iraq's military, command bunkers, Scud missile sites, airfields, communication lines, electrical grids, Republican Guard bases. More than 100,000 sorties were flown. As Lawrence Friedman documents, it wasn't a battle, it was a controlled demolition. But the air war had its dangers. A British tornado crashed during a low-altitude strike. An American F-15E disappeared during a sandstorm. Pilots were captured and paraded on Iraqi TV. Still, Iraq's defenses collapsed day by day. The world had never seen anything like it. One small story reveals how strange this war truly was. At one point, U.S. generals learned about Iraqi Scud missile launches, not from intelligence satellites, but from CNN. A reporter shouted over a broadcast, "We're hearing explosions, possibly Scuds." The Pentagon scrambled analysts. This was the birth of the CNN effect, where journalists could influence military decisions in real time. War had entered a new era. Behind the scenes, elite special forces were hunting Iraq's mobile Scud launchers. British SAS units, US Delta Force teams, and Australian operators crept across the desert in small groups. One SAS soldier later said, "Finding a Scud launcher in that desert was like trying to grab a shadow." Their missions remained classified for years, but they were crucial. If Israel entered the war after a Scud strike, the coalition might collapse. These teams prevented that, and perhaps prevented a wider Middle Eastern conflict. On February 24th, the ground war began, but rather than attack head-on, General Schwarzkopf executed the famous left hook, a massive sweep around Iraqi defenses. It caught the Iraqi army completely off guard. Tens of thousands surrendered. Many waved torn t-shirts as white flags. Some were barefoot, starving, dehydrated. A U.S. Marine recalled they weren't fighting for Saddam anymore. They were fighting to survive. In just 100 hours, Kuwait was liberated. Iraq's army collapsed. It was one of the fastest major ground victories in modern history. As Iraqi soldiers retreated from Kuwait, a long convoy of tanks, trucks, and stolen civilian cars jammed the road north. Coalition aircraft struck the convoy repeatedly. When journalists arrived, they found a scene that looked biblical. Vehicles melted, bodies burned in place. The road turned into a corridor of devastation. Some called it necessary, others called it excessive. Even U.S. officers debated whether the strikes were proportional. The highway of death became the haunting image that reminded the world, victory always has a shadow. On February 28, 1991, President Bush declared a ceasefire. The war ended, officially, but the consequences were only beginning. Inside Iraq, uprisings erupted immediately. Shia rebels in the south, Kurds in the north. They believed the United States would help them overthrow Saddam. Saddam crushed the uprisings brutally. Mass graves filled the desert. Villages were emptied. The war was over, but the suffering wasn't. Desert Storm wasn't just a military success, it was a global demonstration. America showed unmatched air superiority, unmatched precision technology, unmatched global reach, unmatched coalition power. The Soviet Union was gone. China was not yet ready to challenge the U.S. Europe depended on American leadership. For a brief moment, the world belonged to one superpower. This shaped the decades ahead. NATO expansion, U.S. interventions in the Balkans, the war on terror, the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Today's Middle East power struggles, Gordon and Trainer wrote, "The Gulf War defined the American way of war: speed, technology, precision, and dominance." Desert Storm felt clean, quick, high-tech, decisive, televised, victorious. But beneath the glow of night vision footage, new problems were already forming. A wounded Iraq, a humiliated Saddam, a U.S. convinced of its own invincibility, a regions entering new cycles of instability, a world beginning to question what a single superpower era really meant. And soon, new threats would emerge. Ones precision missiles couldn't stop, ones stealth jets couldn't deter, ones that would drag America back into the Middle East and eventually bring war into American soil on September 11th. Desert Storm wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. The opening chapter of the 21st century's wars, shaped by oil, terror, power, and consequence. A chapter the world is still living through today.